Hey, I'm Mike Pereira, and that is Dean Blandino, and this is Last Call. We're going overtime. Oh, wait a minute. Are we going overtime in this first segment? I guess that's what we ought to talk about, the end of the Bills-Kansas City game. Kansas City goes down, scores on the first possession of overtime, and it is over. One of the greatest playoff games in the history of the NFL ends with a lot of chatter, Dean. Lots of chatter about should both teams have gotten possession. Our man Greg Olson says if you're still arguing in a game like that, it's not in the best interest of everyone that Mahomes and Allen get the ball in overtime. I don't know what to tell you. Dean, what do we do here?
I'm just surprised that our executive producer Damu didn't have a Skip Bayless tweet. That surprises me. But anyway. What are we going to do with overtime? Everybody's up in arms. What an amazing weekend of games, and what a great game to finish it off with Buffalo and Kansas City. And look, I get it. Everybody wanted to see Josh Allen get the ball back and see if they could go down and score a touchdown. Here's the deal with overtime, and we've been through this. This is not something that will be new on the competition committee's agenda. It's talked about every year. There have been major changes with overtime. You think about back in 2010, we made a change for postseason only. Used to be, right? Overtime, you win the toss, you go down, you kick a field goal, game over. Everybody was up in arms about that. The toss was really instrumental. Made the change, you had to score a touchdown. Kickoff was moved up to the 35, led to more touchbacks. Worse starting field position for the offense, so that had to change. Then in 2012, regular season, you got to score a touchdown to win on the first possession. And then in 2017, 10-minute overtime in regular season. And when I look at the overtime numbers in the current rule from 2017 to 2021, here are the numbers: 69 overtime games, 5 ties. Of the games that weren't ties, so we're talking about the 64 games, in 56, both teams had the ball, right? 35, it was the team winning the toss that won the game. So roughly 50% of the time. And there were only 13 times, 19% of the time, where the team winning the toss went down and scored a touchdown on the opening possession. So the numbers, look, we can all point to this game, but the numbers don't tell you that we need to make a change. And when I think about overtime, NFL overtime, it adheres to a couple of guiding principles, right? You need to decide a winner, right? Obviously in postseason, you got to decide a winner. You have to think about, okay, sudden death. The NFL overtime, unlike college, can end at any time on any play. You can't leave your seat. The game could end at any time. College, it doesn't end on any play. It gets to a certain point where it could, but in NFL overtime, any play, anytime, game could end, and it maintains all 3 phases. This is the ultimate team game: offense, defense, special teams. Everybody's talking about Josh Allen not getting the ball. Well, how about Buffalo's defense and their all-pro safeties and their number 1 ranked defense having the ability to get on the field and stop Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City? So I don't think we need to make major changes to the rule. If we want to get rid of the coin toss, this is something that I've talked to Joel Bussard about. You know Joel, who's a mentor for both of us. Joel's recommendation: get rid of the coin toss, give it to the home team in the postseason, let the visiting team have the opening toss. The home team gets it in overtime. You've earned that right. And then maybe we won't be complaining about a coin toss. But I like NFL overtime. I don't think it needs to change.
Well, you know, I agree with all your stats, and we know now that all of the talk is based on emotion. I mean, that's where we are right now. And once you get to the competition committee, the emotion is basically worn out and stats do win out. And this is not the first time this has happened. Let's go back to Super Bowl 51. I mean, Super Bowl 51, Atlanta was leading the Patriots, and then the Patriots came back and tied it. And what did the Patriots do? They went on the first possession and scored a touchdown. So there was emotion after that one too. So, but I think I've had enough. I mean, I think I've had enough. Look at overtime has changed. Overtime, as you so eloquently stated. And I think we can point out the fact that once we get in the playoffs, it changes again because the format of overtime changes once we get to the playoffs. It's not 1 10-minute period. It's basically, as John Hussey said, which was interesting, he said, we're going to start a new game. And that's what you do when you get into the playoffs. You start a new game. So it's not specifically one period. Each team gets 3 timeouts. They get 2 timeouts in a regular season overtime period. I think I'm done with it. I think I'm ready for both teams to have possession of the ball. I mean, I hate to see this conversation, at the very end of the 4 most spectacular games I have seen in a row. Why can't we just say when we get to playoffs, every team is going to be guaranteed a possession? Look, the defenses were gassed. I mean, probably whichever team won the toss in this particular game was going to win the game. So I think I'm going to go with my emotion. I don't want to see it in this way. I mean, I want to see Josh Allen back on the field again. And eventually it will get to sudden death. It's sudden death whether you make a play or don't make a play if you go beyond that one possession. So I think the fans deserve it. I mean, I think the players deserve it. And yep, I was right along with you when I say all 3 phases, or when we talk about all 3 phases of the game. Defense is a big phase. You can stop them. But what's the advantage of the coin toss? When's the last time we saw a team that won the coin toss defer in the overtime period? It doesn't happen now. So there is a marked influence whether or not the stats bear it out. But I want both teams. I mean, I'm gonna give up my old position where I was along with you. I just think it's fair to everyone, and I think it's fair to the fans. And, we're not just talking about the fans that were watching on television, the fans that were at the game. It was remarkable. So I'm flipping Dean, which I've done before. My emotion takes me. When that game ended, I was sitting in this chair watching that game, and it deflated me a little bit that it was over. I mean, and then it deflated me even more that I didn't get the chance to see Buffalo, have a chance to answer that touchdown like they get the answer to the field goal.
Well, I think you make excellent points. Now, listen, I scored a touchdown with my opening comments. You scored a touchdown with your comments. Well, guess what? I want my chance to respond now, right? And this is, where does it end? Are we going to Kansas City scores a touchdown. Buffalo then scores a touchdown. Now Kansas City gets the ball, and guess what? They can win the game on a field goal. If they kick a field goal, we're still complaining that Josh Allen didn't get the ball back. Where does it end? And we have to understand, and you know this, Mike, when it comes to rules changes, what's the number one consideration? The number one consideration whenever the NFL is going to change a rule, what is it?
Well, it's player safety.
Player safety. And we've changed rules to reduce the number of snaps that tired players have to play in addition to 60 minutes of football. And we can't lose sight of that. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to die on this hill. I get it. I understand what everyone's saying, but we got to understand player safety. And we have to understand, look, the game has to end at some point, and you could keep going back and forth. And now we're playing, players don't train to play 5 hours in pads, right? That's not safe. And we just have to make sure we understand that.
And I agree with that point too. And I think the competition committee has been great, but still it changes though, Dean. It does change when you get to the postseason, right? What was the game? Who was it? Miami and someone that went like for an eternity, but it happens in the postseason, and the postseason is a one and done. I mean, it's a one and done. So, I just somehow feel there ought to be an opportunity. I don't want to discount, player safety, but, Josh
maybe it's postseason only. Maybe it's postseason only. I think you got to be careful about regular season.
I would say it's postseason only. I mean, you stay with where we are. Look, it took them. You had to move a mountain to get it to where it is in postseason now, when it was just the field goal that could end it. And yet, I think, to me, postseason only when it gets to one and dones. If we're not talking about one and dones, then I say it stays.